So let's get started. Well, the price of everything is just absolutely out of freaking control. It's totally stressing me out how high everything is right now. It's just too freaking high. And then, because of, the whole tariffs thing, Tingles decided to go ahead and remove all of their suppliers from China. So now it's only local delivery in the States. And that killed off 70% of their whole their items, you know what I mean? I had a wish list that was almost 500 items tall, and now there's 432 unavailable items now because they're not being sold because they can't be sold. So, and the worst thing about I almost have never used Temu's local delivery because shipping fees, that's the lack of shipping fees for Temu is almost the biggest draw for me. I mean, the prices are cheap, but then the free shipping, I mean, it's just too good to be true type of deal. So I always took advantage of that. I've only used the local warehouse maybe 2 or 3 times. Except for with my most recent order because I had to. And I think I ended up paying $6 for shipping. I'm just not happy about that. $6 goes a long way on Temu, especially if you're as frugal as I am. That $6 would have stretched incredibly. But what can you do? And if I had added more, that's the problem, is that you gotta pay shipping for everything unless you buy from one vendor. And that vendor normally just sells one type of thing. So what are the odds of you just shopping from them? They're $2.99 for shipping, or add $30 to this order, it'll be free. And I'm like, well, let me see what they even have. And it's nothing that I would want, or I'm even looking for. So that sucks. And but that's happening kind of all over the place. Prices are just skyrocketing across the board. But what I did order was, well, basically I bought another light. This is the last light I'm gonna buy until I start actually making money off of YouTube, because if this light doesn't work out, it just tells me that I'm going to need a more expensive setup, and I can't afford that. So it'll just have to wait. But this is my last shot at it, and hopefully it will give me the illumination that I'm looking for, because I haven't had it. So, and then I also ordered a new a Holbert camera. Remember the one that died last year? I finally got a new one, but I got a different one that has a bigger light on it, because the light on those things are just comically they're basically for decoration. Let's be real. So I got one that has a big light on it that will actually serve as a light. So you won't be on the doorstep and you'll be just this little balls of light. You know what I mean? It's not illuminating the porch whatsoever. That's how the last one was anyways. So that's the point of this one, is to make sure it's not like that. And for a little bit of hot gossip, okay, my neighbors are moving out as of, I guess, yesterday. They're still moving out, but they are moving. And it's weird because I'm kind of sad about it in a way. I mean, we didn't talk. It was sort of, they're the ones with the kids that I talked about before. Well, with the one kid. But they always have the kids over there playing. Anyways, we didn't really talk, but it was we were friendly, Hi, buy that kind of deal. I tried to not talk to him as much as I could, just because it's awkward sometimes, and but we saw their landlord came to meet us, so he bought that place because the people who owned it before the people who moved in, it was an elderly couple who lived there for decades, and then the husband passed. very, very low risk, and she just happened to be in that like 1 to 5% of people who don't make it through such a simple surgery. I can't remember what it was, but she didn't make it through, and it was shocking. And so, but the house remained there for like a couple years, and the family was just taking care of it. I think they finally decided to sell it. So the guy who bought it came over to meet us one day. He just knocked on the door. He was like, "Hey, I just bought that house, and you know, can you tell me a bit about the area? You know, what's it like? Anything I should know? That kind of deal." Very nice guy. And he was like, "Well, if you want, I could bring this to you." And it was like, "Well, kind of already have a place if you haven't noticed." But also, how much would you want? And the amount he was charging for the rent at that place, he was like, "No." Like, ain't no damn way. It's 500 more. Uh, Absolutely can't do that. So we're just like, thanks for the offer, but it's no. And besides, it's like, if I'm going to move, I'm going to move far. Okay, I'm not moving one house over. It's just not happening. Even though they have a completely fenced in front and backyard, and we only have a fenced in backyard. And that actually isn't even fully fenced in anymore because a giant tree fell down and destroyed the middle of the fence. It's a whole thing. But, so anyways, nice guy. And so shortly after he bought it and renovated the insides or whatever, he didn't paint it. So it's a very interesting color. It's like a mint. But, he rented it out. We're like, oh God. You know what I mean? He rented it out so quick. Yeah, we weren't expecting him to rent it so quickly, but he did. And it was like, oh God, they got a kid. Oh God, they got a dog. And it was just like, here we go. But they weren't bad people or anything like that. They were just, a whole big contrast from how I am and stuff like that. They left stuff like in the yard. They would have like the trash bags in the front yard. It was just different. It was way different. And they'd be like outside, like yelling at each other. That was like how I first was introduced to them, was them arguing over I don't know what, but they were just like at each other's throats. And it just seemed like the woman was always just like biting him, like just chewing him out left and right. Like, I don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? I could assume that like she's just a total bee, but at the same time, like I know better than that. You know what I mean? There's always two sides to the story, so who knows what he's doing? You know what I mean? A lot of times it's like, well, the woman will argue and yell, but the guy's like, he's being like, he's doing all the shady things under the surface, and that's where it all comes from. But anyways, I'm used to them, or at least I was. But then a couple weeks ago, I happened to notice that it was really dark over at their house, and I realized at some point that they did not have power, and I was like, "Oh, they don't have power," and I'm like, "Well, how does that work? Because they have no power, but they have a kid, and they have a dog, and I mean, the kid is like, how old is she? Maybe 11 or 12, possibly 13. But I mean, she's a tween. Okay, let's say that she's a tween. But it's like, how does that work? You know what I mean? And it's like, it's really strange because it's like I grew up in a single parent home, and that was rough for my mother. But she made it work. She worked really, really hard. But I always thought, man, the two, like any of my friends who had both their parents, they had much different. Their life was just different. You know what I mean? Not necessarily better, but it was like, they talked about having vacations and stuff like that. So we don't have vacations. I never wanted for anything. In fact, I was very spoiled. I will say that, especially compared to comparison to my friends. But you know what I mean? It was just like, you know, we didn't have like a pool room or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, but it was like, it was just always like, clearly having two parents who are working does a major, it does something, right? But then there's this situation, and it's like, well, how are you guys not making it work? One kid and a dog, and there's two of you. But at the same time, it is real out here right now. You just don't know what the situation is. I actually don't know which one of them works, if any of them work. You know what I mean? So who knows what their situation is? They could have some kind of disability or like impairment, or he could be like an ex-con or she could be like an ex-con, so that limits their work opportunities. As ironic as that is under the current situation. Anyways, but it's like I don't know. So I'm not judging them, but I am just kind of like, how does that happen? And I actually remember like hearing them on the phone, talking to like I guess they were on some kind of program for their power, and so there's like a program where they'll help you pay for it, but you gotta make sure I guess let's say you get your power turned off, like theirs did. Well, they got into like a program that got the power back on, and then not only that, but then got them to have to make smaller payments. They just didn't have to miss any of the payments, you know what I mean? So they're making a fraction of what they would normally have to. But if they screw that up, then they're screwed. And that's basically what happens somehow. So who knows what happened with that, you know what I mean? But that's sad. That was sad. It was just so sad for me to think about anytime coming home, like at night, if I left and came home at night, and just seeing their just dark house, and you can hear silence, you know what I mean? So that's how you kind of know. It's just, there's a certain, when a house is completely silent, you just can feel it. Like, and I'm not talking about just like things being off. I'm talking about like when there's no power, because there's like, I swear, electricity makes a noise. You can just, there's like ambience to current of electricity or something, right? So like anytime your power goes out, like say the whole block's power goes out, and that deathly silence, right? It's like you can't hear anything going in anybody's house when the power's on. But when the power goes out suddenly, it's like you can hear every little thing. And that's just because that's just how the power is, right? There's nothing in the air. But so anyways, a couple days ago, I ended up seeing their landlord, and he had popped over there for some reason. And that was the first time I've seen him since we rented the place out. And literally the next day they're moving out, and I'm like, what? Like, are they moving things in? And no, they're moving out. And they were like, well, we don't want to move, because I asked them, and I was like, you guys are moving already? Like, because really they haven't, in the grand scheme of things, they haven't lived there very long. And we're like, it feels like you just got here. And they're like, yeah, well, we don't want to move, but life happens sometimes, and like, trust me, I know about that. So it's sad, and now I don't know, because I've complained about them so many times for little petty things, and it's not even really like, nothing really ever really bothered me, you know what I mean? Just having my first world kind of things, you know what I mean? And just having neighbors, that kind of thing. And but they seem like decent people, so I hope that they get on their feet. Like I'm getting kind of emotional thinking about it, because it's like, I hope they're not like going to be completely homeless. I hope they have a place to go. Like it really didn't hit on me, like what it would mean to be like evicted. So I don't know. Like I didn't bother to ask all the details. You know what I mean? They clearly didn't want to talk about it. I wasn't going to ask. So it's like, but I hope they have somewhere to go. They at least have a U-Haul, which isn't saying anything whatsoever. Because it doesn't cost a whole lot to rent a U-Haul and get your stuff. Maybe they have storage or something, or you know what I mean? Like, who knows? homeless, but I hope they're not just going to be like on the streets, especially since our homeless situation here in town has skyrocketed. Like it's enormous now, and there used to be none. There was a point where we had like no homeless population. Well, we did, but it was like it was so teeny that it was not something that was even remotely considered a problem. We had like a place where the homeless could go, and there was never more than a couple people there at a time. You know what I mean? It would go weeks without anyone being there, and now it's like almost needs a reservation. You know what I mean? Like people have to hurry up and get there at a certain time, or they're not going to get in. And there's homeless people like in front of the stores. They're on the corners asking for money. It's all over the place, and it's like it's sad and it's depressing. And but I've never like seen a family like all together out on the street before. So I don't know what. Like I said, I don't. But anyways, I hope they rebound. You know what I mean? I hope they recover, even though the financial climate we're in right now, it does not favor them. You know what I mean? Like if you're struggling right now, your chances of getting out of that right now aren't great. So I feel for them, and it's just very sad. And not only that, but to get back to my own selfishness, it's like now I gotta deal with the potential new neighbors, and it's like you never know. You never know. They were such a radical difference from the elderly couple that it took a while to adjust to. You know what I'm saying? Whereas the people on the other side of us, anytime they rent out that house, no one stays there very, very long. The people are always strange, and they move out abruptly almost every single time. The last people moved out overnight, like in the night. Okay, but not only that, they never showed their faces. They like did everything at night. They mowed the lawn at night. They did everything they could to not be seen. It was bizarre. It's like, are they vampires? Are they in Widsec? Like, what do they got going on? But and now the current people are very similar in that aspect. Is that we rarely see them. I know they have kids, and I never hear them except for the other day. I walked out and I saw the kid, and the kid was holding a baby, and I got the impression that that baby might have been the kid's, and I was like, I hope not, because that kid looks like they are maybe 13, 14, and they're teeny. And the other day I saw that there was a tent in their backyard, and then the other day there was like a strange guy mowing their lawn. So at least they don't mow it at night. But and the guy and the little girl's reaction, like their interaction, it kind of seemed it was giving baby daddy kind of deal. And he looks considerably older than her, like he's an adult kind of deal. And I was wondering, like, is he living in that tent back there? Like what? Like, anyways, but I'm trying not to think too much about that. Definitely one of those things where it's like I'm staying out of that and away from that. Like, by all means, like, stay, like, do your hermit thing. Like, I don't want to know anything about you guys because it seems like trouble. It seems like drama and trouble, and like you don't want to be involved. So that's how it would be. Like, it was like when they were first moving, it was like, hi, I thought the person I was talking to was moving in, but it wasn't him. It was some guy, the little girl, and apparently the baby, but I never see the guy. And every now and then I'll see random people over there, and sometimes a little girl. But it's so rare. It's so rare that I basically just never see them. But that's how it always is when someone moves over there. They move in. They're kind of strange, and then suddenly they're gone. Even when we've liked people who moved over there, they'll just suddenly move out as quick as they possibly can. They'll break the lease and everything. Like, we couldn't do it. And it's like, what is wrong with that house? What's wrong with it? But to be fair, like, I've seen multiple birds fly into creases of the house, like literally. Like, they'll fly into like a crevice into the damn house. And and that's happened for years. And so it's like, clearly they're not fixing the problem. So Alright, so I don't want this video to reach over 30 minutes. Let me see. We talked about our neighbors, so we've done our gossiping thing. Shame on me, but sometimes you just gotta vent about the people, right? And we've talked about prices going crazy, and you know, it's really getting serious in the grocery store, let me tell you. What else? So deaf. I'm wondering how this comes across on this mic. I've only used it 2 other times, and one was to literally test it. And that wasn't the greatest test to me because I literally was for shorts, and this will be the real determination if this will work for this, because hopefully it does. But one problem that I do know that there is with this is that it picks up a lot of noise on the bass. So I was trying not to actually move my finger around on it, because when I was listening to it back the first time, it was like anytime I moved my finger, you could hear it. You know what I mean? And it was like it's very sensitive. The bass is sensitive, you know what I mean? And it's kind of hollow, so that makes it even worse. Anyways, I think that's it for this video. And yeah, thank you for listening to my mostly ranting. Okay, and I guess I will see you tomorrow in the next video. And until then, take care of yourself and peace out.